Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Monday, October the 21st, 2024. I've had enough talking about politics, and so today I want to consider the conjunction between the Moon and Jupiter. Yeah, we have a Moon-Jupiter conjunction today in Gemini, and that's what I want to talk about. I want to consider what it means, this Moon-Jupiter conjunction, and I also want to look at some famous people who've got the Moon-Jupiter conjunction in their horoscopes. You know, the Moon-Jupiter conjunction is supposed to be one of the most fortunate aspects in the book, and there is a view that it can be very lucky. And I think that if we look at some people who've got Moon-Jupiter conjunctions in their chart, or who had Moon-Jupiter conjunctions in their chart, I think there is some evidence that it is quite a lucky thing to have in your horoscope. But before I consider Moon-Jupiter, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Monday, October the 21st. Usual reminder, if you enjoy this video, I'd be very happy if you were to like it. If you're not subscribed, I'd be really happy if you were to subscribe. Of course, don't subscribe if you don't enjoy the video. I can't really expect that, can I? Anyway, let's look at what's happening today. So here's the positions of the planets set for noon today, Monday, October the 21st. And top right, there's a picture of a Moon-Jupiter conjunction. That's sort of a bright star. That is Jupiter, and there's the moon. And so at noon in New York today, the moon is at 26 Gemini. So we've got the moon in Gemini. Moon is about to change signs into Cancer. And so, with the moon in Gemini, it can be quite good for conversation, for thinking, for communicating. It's not too heavy, the moon in Gemini. In fact, moon in Gemini, does like to talk. Sometimes as a way of avoiding more serious issues. If you don't know what to do, if something is complicated with moon in Gemini, what do? You talk. You can perhaps talk your way out of the situation. And the moon is actually making a trine to the sun in Libra. It's very nice having a trine between the sun and the moon. The lights in trine, it's very harmonious. The negative and the positive are in balance, the masculine and the feminine. So it's always nice to have this moon trine the sun, and it can be actually quite life-giving. And yes, there is also a conjunction between the moon and Jupiter. I think, in a general sense, having a Moon-Jupiter conjunction, it's lucky, particularly when that Moon-Jupiter conjunction is exact. Okay, that will be earlier in the day. I think you're perhaps going to feel that Moon-Jupiter conjunction more if you're in Eurasia, Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand. I think if you're in the Americas with this Moon-Jupiter conjunction, you're still going to feel it, very much so, because the Moon and Jupiter are close to each other. But it may be that you have to really act early to take full advantage of its energy. Having said that, we perhaps shouldn't regard the moon, Jupiter, and the sun as separate things, because you could say that the moon, having made a conjunction to Jupiter, is making a trine to the sun. So perhaps all of us should consider this. They are in a very fortunate relationship, the moon, Jupiter, and the sun. So I think for that reason, for many of us, it really can be a good day. Now, there is one thing I do have to point out about the sun, and that is the fact that the sun is making a sesquiquadrate to Saturn. So the sun is 135 degrees from Saturn. So we possibly have a mixed picture. I think moon conjunct Jupiter is nice, moon trine sun is nice, but that sun sesquiquadrate Saturn, it is a serious aspect, and it could be just just a little bit heavy. And I don't know. I suppose it it kind of depends who you are, depends what you're doing, and it may have an influence. I said I wasn't going to talk about politics, but I do think that Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn may have an impact on Kamala. I mean, I'll try to briefly talk about it later in the video. I wasn't planning on talking about it. It's just that that Saturn is starting to impact her Uranus. She's got Uranus in Virgo, and she's got Saturn opposition her Uranus, and so that could have an impact on her. I don't want to go on and on about it because I've talked enough about Kamala. But for some people, maybe if we're involved in politics, maybe if we're dealing with things from a collective perspective, this Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn could be difficult. So I kind of think it depends what we're doing. And I think for most of us, yes, I think there is a capacity to take things too seriously, but perhaps we just need to focus on the things that make us happy. Moon conjunct Jupiter, you could say Moon conjunct Jupiter is always looking on the bright side of life, particularly as Moon is trine the Sun. So I think in most cases we can just not worry too much about the Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn, but don't be complacent, don't be lazy. I think one of the problems with Jupiter in astrology is that when Jupiter is prominent, it can just encourage us to take things for granted. We assume things are going to work well, and they don't. And if we're trying to make something happen, we've got to make the effort, and I think that is what is expected of us. Now, late this evening, London time, in fact, it's at 10 minutes to midnight, 23:50, the moon moves into Cancer. So that means that late afternoon, early evening, if you're in the Americas, the moon moves into Cancer. So that is a change. And the moon moving from an air sign to a water sign. And that could be a little bit difficult. It depends. I suppose it depends who we are. I mean, I think that if we're just taking things at a sort of everything is sort of light and we're enjoying ourselves, Moon trine Sun. Yeah, the transition from Gemini to Cancer may be a bit problematic. On the other hand, Moon does rule Cancer, and so for some of us, it may actually be a welcome change. Perhaps things have just got a bit too Gemini and trivial, and we just want to take things seriously again. And I think we can do that with the moon moving into Cancer. And I suppose it depends who you are. I think the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces, will appreciate the moon moving into Cancer. But for many of us, that moon moving into Cancer isn't going to really make itself felt until tomorrow. Now, there is one other aspect that I should mention, and that is a sesquiquadrate between Mercury and Neptune. So there's Mercury, and where's Neptune gone? There's Neptune. So Mercury and Neptune are 135 degrees apart. So Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune can be a little bit confusing. Mercury is the brain. It's the way we communicate. It's also the way we try to understand things. And so perhaps with Mercury moving towards that sesquiquadrate of Neptune, as the day progresses, we just might feel that we don't really know what's going on, or we might have fantasies, or perhaps there's a sense of deception. Who is deceiving who? Who's telling the lies? Are we telling the lies? Are we lying to ourselves? Are we lying to other people? Are other people telling us lies? So the facts could get confused, and I don't think we should take things at face value with Mercury, sesquiquadrate, Neptune. Now, this chart's set for New York. You can see that the moon was at 26 Gemini. Now, if we recast that chart for Sydney, Australia just being a sort of representative of Australia, New Zealand, and East Asia, then it's a slightly different picture. You can see that the Moon-Jupiter conjunction is still applying. The Moon is actually only in the middle of Gemini, so it's very much a Moon in Gemini day. No chance of the Moon moving into Cancer, and the Moon is applying to the conjunction to Jupiter. So I do think that if you are East Asia, Australia, New Zealand, then for much of the day there is going to be a great sense of optimism and a feeling that things can really happen. I think we get that wherever we are, but I think it's going to be particularly strong if you are in that part of the world. So you might say, perhaps if you're in Australia and New Zealand and Kamchatka, the far east of Russia, for example, then it's perhaps going to be a slightly easier day, less complicated day than if you're in the Americas. But all of us at some level do experience this Moon-Jupiter conjunction, which of course at the end of this video I will be talking about the Moon-Jupiter conjunction and what it means. So looking at the heliocentric picture, so here it is with the Sun at the center of the solar system. We have Mercury at 10 degrees. That's set for Sydney. I want to set. I don't want to look at the heliocentric picture for Sydney. I just want to look at the heliocentric picture for New York to sort of make it simple. So let me just do that again. But yeah, so you can see that the Mercury was at was opposition the Mars-Jupiter conjunction. So let me just show that here. So there's Mercury. There's Mercury at 12 Sagittarius, opposition Jupiter, starting to make an opposition to Mars as well. So over the next day or two, we're going to have Mercury opposition Jupiter, and we're going to have Mercury opposition Mars. In fact, day or two, I think we forget that Mercury is a fast mover. In fact, I take that back. Over the next day, we're going to have Mercury opposition Jupiter and opposition Mars. So I think the way I would see that is to say, well, we've got this Mars-Jupiter conjunction. It is separating, high energy conjunction. It might sound nice, Mars conjunct Jupiter, but Mars conjunct Jupiter can be difficult. It's about too much energy. It can be about war. It can be about violence. It might be about people feeling that violence is the only way of expressing itself. And so that's that is an issue with Mars conjunct Jupiter. Yeah, I said it sounds good on paper, but it can be a very difficult combination because things get taken too far. And then Mercury, you could say that Mercury just represents the mind, the way people communicate. It could just be a trigger. Mercury just activates that Mars-Jupiter conjunction, even though it's separating. So the next day, today, tomorrow, I think there is a potential for violence, more violence than usual, and more animosity than usual. People just feeling they have to put a lot of energy into getting their way and into defending themselves. And I suppose there's going to be a verbal aspect to that with Mercury opposition Jupiter, Mercury opposition Mars. And a reminder here from a heliocentric view that, look at Mars. Mars is starting to make a square to Saturn. So we're about to get a heliocentric square between Mars and Saturn. Now, that's not going to happen immediately. Probably off the top of my head, got another 6 days or something like that. So I don't know. We've certainly got a few days, before that happens. And we might nonetheless be starting to feel it. I mean, I do think that overall today should be quite good because of the moon conjunct Jupiter, but slowly we're starting to feel that heliocentric Mars square Saturn, and it is quite collective, but it's perhaps just an awareness that things are hotting up in the world, and there's a capacity for frustration, and we may actually feel it sooner because of Mercury. Because look at Mercury. Mercury is now Mercury is starting to make the opposition to Mars, and Mercury will soon enough be square Saturn. So in a way, we may not have to wait for that Mars-Saturn square to be exact to feel its impact. Mercury is getting closer and closer. Mercury is a fast planet, and so I do think that from a heliocentric point of view, that may indicate that over the course of a week there could be trouble, and I think we need to monitor that, and see what things look like over the course of the next day. In fact, it might be a good idea just to give you an idea to just look at that heliocentric chart for tomorrow. So this is today, October the 21st. Now, really look at Mercury. Mercury's at 12:18 today, noon on Monday. So let's just change the. Let's look at what Mercury is doing at noon tomorrow, just to. So this isn't Monday's chart, but so you see Mercury by tomorrow, over the course of the next 24 hours, Mercury makes the opposition to Jupiter, it makes the opposition to Mars, and so really today and tomorrow Mercury triggers it all, and then it's moving straight to the square of Saturn. So I'd actually think the beginning of a week, Monday, Tuesday into Wednesday, we've got this heliocentric T-square involving Mercury opposite. Remember, it's heliocentric, not geocentric. Heliocentric, involving Mercury opposition Mars, Jupiter, and Mercury making a square to Saturn. So actually, in terms of global events, I do think the beginning of a week could be quite difficult. So let's go back to the geocentric picture and take the day back to the 21st, and let's now look at the perspective, what's happening today on Monday the 21st, from the perspective of the 12 signs. So these are my forecasts for today for the 12 signs, and today is of course Monday, October the 21st, 2024. Aries, it looks like being a relatively comfortable day. I do think that things are happening, but it's not too heavy for you, I don't think. We do have a conjunction between the Moon and Jupiter in Gemini, and I think that with this conjunction, you're finding it relatively easy to express yourself, and you can come over as being someone who is enthusiastic, and you will have, I think, a lot of things to say, and people are going to listen to you, and also Aries, you might find that you've got some good ideas, and even if these ideas aren't particularly practical, they do provide a talking point. And so if you're able to tell people what's on your mind, then I think people will listen. And really, it may not be the subject of the conversation that matters. It's the fact that a conversation is happening. And I think there just in general is something of a smooth flow. And also, Aries, I do think it's important to try to keep it light. There is this Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn, and the Sun is still in Libra. Libra, Sun is getting ready to move into Scorpio, but it's still in Libra, your opposite sign. And if you just get into something too much, you focus too much on something, you might find that it does start getting heavy and difficult, and things are perhaps more complicated than you expected. And it's all about asking too many questions. So always, Aries, know when to stop. You just don't want to get into things too deeply, because if you do get into things too deeply, you might find that you reach a point where it's just over your head, and people perhaps start getting angry and frustrated. And I think that really is unnecessary. So, don't feel that you have to go too deeply into things. And, as I was saying, at the beginning of this video, with the moon in Gemini, it can be something of a defense mechanism to just talk. So if you don't know what to do, if you don't know what happens next, or if you're feeling a little bit under pressure, then just talking can really help. And sort of talking can just help people relax. It can help people sort of think about something else. Sometimes it's just always a good idea to change the subject. I know that sometimes people are dismissive about the idea of constantly changing the subject. You shouldn't change the subject, you should stick to the point. But no, I think at times like this, it's always a good idea to change the subject every now and then. I mean, at the very least, things get boring if you keep talking about one thing. At best, boring. At worst, things could become tense and difficult. Do keep talking. And also, many Aries may feel they have to be several different places at once, and I suppose that could be a little bit of a problem. I mean, if you are just moving around, not huge distances, but you go from one place to another place and you feel you have to be here, there and everywhere, then I suppose if you have a car, you could use up a lot of gas. But also, you just may be scattering your resources. That may be an issue. So perhaps at the beginning of the day, decide, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And you don't have to be lots of different places at once. Just focus on one or two places, and don't exhaust yourself, and don't spread your resources too thinly. And also, Aries, don't forget that the Mars, your ruler, is still in Cancer, and Cancer is quite a home-orientated sign. It doesn't like to move around too much. And if you spend all day doing sort of short distance traveling, you may just lose a sense of who you are and where you're going. In fact, even if you don't do a lot of traveling, even if you stay in one place but you talk to lots of different people too much, then you might perhaps lose your bearings. So I do think in general it's a good idea to have a lot of conversations, to be talking, to cheering people up, because I think you can be very optimistic today. I think it is a good idea. You don't want to take things too far. Now, if you are an American Aries, then this afternoon, this evening, the moon does change sign. The moon changes sign from Gemini to Cancer, and you've already got Mars in Cancer, then you've got Moon in Cancer. And so if you are in the Americas, then there will come a point today when you just want to calm down and not spread yourself too thinly, and perhaps start to focus on things that make you feel comfortable and secure. If you're not in the Americas, well, don't worry, the moon will move into Cancer tomorrow. In fact, if you're in the UK, the moon moves into Cancer today, but at 10 minutes to midnight. So you'll have 10 minutes of the day left with the moon in Cancer. Taurus. Taurus, some Taurians may feel that money may be an issue. I mean, maybe not an issue. I probably use this word issue too much. It may be of importance. And there is a conjunction between the moon and Jupiter in Gemini. And, I don't want to get your hopes up, but you could interpret a moon-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini from a Taurian perspective as just being financial good luck. That is a possibility. Now, I absolutely do not want to get your hopes up, but you shouldn't give up on money or be of the view that money is not something that you need to worry about, or there's no point, because you can make things happen if you feel there's a financial opportunity, even if it seems to be quite a slight financial opportunity. Then I would suggest that you go for it with this Moon-Jupiter conjunction, because it does give you the opportunity to get more of something, and it may not be just be about money. It may be some other commodity, some other goods that you can get more of. So that is certainly the positive side of Moon-Jupiter conjunction. It does make you luckier than average in a financial sense. Now, there is, of course, a downside to the Moon-Jupiter conjunction, and it may be that some Taurians have a choice. You either make money, you consolidate your finances, or you do something that feels financially useful, or you spend money. And I suppose spending money is easier than saving money. And I think that with the Moon-Jupiter conjunction, there can perhaps be a tendency there to just feel you have to spend money on one thing or the other. And it's fairly short-lived, this Moon-Jupiter conjunction, but yeah, it can be somewhat indulgent. And we shouldn't forget that the moon is not just making a conjunction to Jupiter, it's actually making a square to Neptune. And so that moon square Neptune may be a little bit confusing, and money-wise, you might not entirely know what is going on, and you just might be encouraged to make a mistake. I mean, that is about, that's about spending money. You don't have to make a mistake. I think that it would be unnecessary, because I do actually think financially it should be a good day. But if you get deluded and distracted, and you weren't planning on it, but you see something you want to get hold of, you see something you want to spend money on, you weren't planning on spending money on something, then something turns up that you find attractive and you want to get hold of it, then Taurus, you could do something that you later regret of a financial nature. So I think you do have to be a little bit careful in that direction. Though I do think overall, if you handle things correctly, money-wise, it really can be a good day. And you might also benefit from the fact that there is a trine aspect between the moon and the sun. And this sun-moon trine is about harmony, and it's about you, I think, harmonizing with your own resources, being comfortable with what you have. And I understand that some people listening may feel that they don't have enough resources, but it does seem that there are steps you can take to organize your life in a harmonious way to just make yourself feel more comfortable. And I think that really can happen, Taurus. So if you're not comfortable with the way things are financially and in terms of what you have, in terms of material goods, I think that there are steps you can definitely take. And it's not about taking risks. It's perhaps, starting with yourself and perhaps starting with how you're organizing things. And with this moon trine the sun, it almost, with Jupiter involved in it as well, it may be that something is prepared to look after you. If you are prepared to make the effort and to start to look after yourself and be sensible, then of course something else will perhaps step in to look after you. Now, I should remind you that there are no planets in Earth signs at the moment. And because there are no planets in Earth signs, I'm hoping that that's going to actually make you feel more grounded and more sensible. Why? Because there might just be a certain sense of a lack. When I say, of course, no planets in Earth signs, I understand that Uranus and Pluto are in Earth signs, but that doesn't really count. But you may just be aware of a lack at the beginning of the day, that something is missing. And because you realize that something is missing, that inspires you to make an extra effort. Maybe it's like a compensatory effort. You're compensating. A compensatory effort to make sure that everything is in order, because you're trying to create something which is missing. And yeah, it's not just about money, it's just about material security, feeling that you can touch the world around you. And with this lack of Earth in the sky, Taurus, it may be a very good idea to just tune into what's important to you. Many Taurians regard the natural world, plants, the earth, as being really crucial. And so if you're feeling a little bit dislocated and not quite in the right place, or you don't quite have the right relationship to your environment, getting in touch with the earth, it might just be having one plant. I suppose it depends on your situation. Just one plant can make all the difference. If you have access to a garden or a yard, as they call it in America, that I think I get confused in America what the difference between a garden and a yard is. It's not something, this word yard, I still don't really know what a yard means in an American perspective. I'm still working it out. But getting in touch with the Earth, Taurus, is going to be very important for you today. And if you are in touch with the Earth, well, what can go wrong? Gemini. We have a lot of activity in your sign. We have a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini. Of course, Jupiter has been in Gemini since the end of May. So you're very familiar with this Jupiter energy, and Jupiter stays in Gemini, I think it stays in Gemini till May of next year. So you're kind of used to things with Jupiter in Gemini, but now today you've got the moon in Gemini, and the moon in Gemini is going to be in Gemini for most of the day. Okay, if you're in the Americas, it does leave Gemini and go into Cancer sort of, I don't know, late afternoon, early evening. But still, it is by and large, a moon in Gemini day. In fact, it's a moon conjunct Jupiter in Gemini day. And so Gemini, I would have said in a general sense that is fortunate. Your Moon-Jupiter conjunctions are lucky. Later in this video, I will be talking about Moon-Jupiter conjunctions in detail, but I would have said Moon-Jupiter conjunctions are lucky. If you've got a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini, that makes you extra lucky. Now, you have to be very careful about dealing with luck. It's always a problem with astrology. Always, always a problem. And if you say that something good is going to happen, the very act of saying that something good is going to happen can stop that good thing happening. I mean, I know that's a terrible thing to say, but as I've said before, I'm very, very wary about the power of positive thinking. I think that positive thinking can often achieve the opposite. And so if you get excited about something, too excited, unrealistically excited, you believe that things are just going to happen all by themselves, well, that is a recipe for disappointment. But with Moon-Jupiter conjunction, with this Moon-Jupiter conjunction, if you really seize it with both hands, you tell yourself that you can be lucky if you put in the effort, then I think it can be a great day when you're really able to express yourself, and I think that people will listen to you, and you can light things up really because of your enthusiasm. So that is really positive, and you're helped all the more by the fact that the moon is making a trine to the sun. Moon in Gemini making a trine to the sun in Libra. And Libra is about to move into Scorpio in a couple of days' time, but for the moment Sun is about to move out of Libra into Scorpio in a couple of days' time. The moon is making a trine to the sun, and so that just makes you feel comfortable, and it gives you a strong sense of who you are and what you can do. And I do think that the moon trine sun is kind of connected to the Jupiter as well. So the moon, having made the conjunction with Jupiter, it moves on to make a trine to the sun. So there's almost a sun-Jupiter trine feel to today as well. So we can, be positive. We can be optimistic, and I think that we can show off what we can do, because it's all out there. People can see it all. At least we can tell people about it, and we can make it very obvious that we are a really sort of clever, dynamic, and interesting person. So all that certainly looks good. Though you have to bear in mind that Mercury is making a sesquiquadrate to Neptune. So Mercury is at 12:17 Scorpio, noon New York. We've got Neptune is at 27:13 Pisces. So Mercury and Neptune are 135 degrees apart, and that also is an important aspect. And Mercury is you. I suppose it's you. Mercury in Scorpio, perhaps trying to work things out, trying to make sure that everything's in order, perhaps trying to understand the emotional environment, and then sesquiquadrate Neptune. Things happen perhaps that you don't really understand, and you think you understand it, perhaps you're not sure, but maybe you'll feel that you can just get through it. But no, with Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune, if you come across something that you don't understand and you don't know how to do it, or you even think you don't know how to do it, then stop what you're doing. Get help. Read the instructions. Do not plow on with something that you don't understand with Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune. If you do, you could get yourself into trouble. And this, I think, particularly applies if you are doing something perhaps that is work related or business related, or something to do with other people's expectations of you. You perhaps feel that you're in the spotlight and you feel, well, it'll be all right on a night sort of thing. But it won't be all right on a night if you don't understand it. And so I understand, Gemini, that you're a clever and resourceful person. But there is no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in reading the instructions. And that might be as simple as that. You're doing something you don't understand. There is some instructions. You just can't be bothered to read the instructions. That can be a Gemini thing, just not reading the instructions. And it's as clear as daylight. Or Geminis can do this. They're just in a little bit of a hurry and everything's fine, and they make one stupid technological mistake and it's just annoying. It's like, I don't know, not that I know anything about cars, but you It's like connecting you think connecting a battery is really easy, you understand it, but then you connect the wires to the wrong terminals and your electrics on your car are gone just because you make one stupid mistake. And that can be how it is with Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune. It's about just making a mistake that is so stupid, and afterwards you think if you just spent 2 seconds thinking about it, it would be fine. I mean, I'm going on about it because I just don't want you to make the mistake, and it's unnecessary. And we don't want to spoil a good day. And I think it can be a good day with that moon conjunct Jupiter, moon trine Sun. So don't spoil the day by being lazy or complacent or not asking for help if necessary, or by sort of not reading the instructions. Cancer. For most of the day, perhaps all of the day, the moon is moving through Gemini. And Gemini is obviously the sign preceding Cancer. And it's just possible that you may feel that you don't really want to interact. There may be just things that you are sort of holding back on, or you feel other people don't have to be involved, and that's absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that. And there is this conjunction between the moon and Jupiter. Moon and Jupiter is a fortunate conjunction. The moon has a special connection with you. It's conjunct Jupiter, the planet of good luck. Also, the moon is trine the sun, which, again, that is another fortunate aspect. So the moon is actually, in some respects, well placed in Gemini because of that conjunction with Jupiter and the trine of the sun. But it's quite low profile. You don't have to talk about it. And so, Cancer, it may actually be a really good day, really nice day, but a day where everything happens on your terms, at your own pace, where you don't have to be beholden to anyone. You don't have to tell people what you're doing. You don't have to explain anything. And your good fortune, it's your good fortune. It's not anyone else's good fortune. It's nothing that has to be talked about. You can just sort of quietly enjoy yourself. You can quietly feel comfortable, and it just may be that for much of the day, really, the less unnecessary social contact you have, the better. So don't feel pressurized. Absolutely no reason to feel pressurized. And in some cases, Cancerians can benefit by doing things which are quite secretive. You do something, no one knows what you're doing. It's almost like a secret mission, and you know what you're doing. And when you do things in secret, in the shadows, you may be especially fortunate. So I suppose, it's a good day for sort of Cancerian investigators, secret agents, or just Cancerian researchers. You just want to find something out, but you don't want anyone to know that you're trying to find something out. And that's something that Cancerians can do. Cancerians are very good at, I suppose, creating radio silence, sort of disappearing off the radar. When Cancer disappears off the radar, that is a sign that Cancer is doing something that may certainly work in their own interests. Now, the moon does not necessarily stay in Gemini all day. So if you're in the United Kingdom, for example, the moon moves into Cancer at 10 minutes to midnight. So if you're a British Cancerian, or you're in the UK, or if you're in the UK, then the last 10 minutes of the day does have the moon in Cancer. And so there might be a change. I suppose it depends what you're doing. You may have gone to bed by 10 minutes to midnight, but if you haven't gone to bed, there might be a sudden change where you just suddenly feel a lot more comfortable, and feelings can change quickly. They really can change quickly, just in an instant, and it can be all about what you're talking about. That can make a difference. It happened to me just yesterday. I was talking about something, and I was talking about the past, and I was talking about an event in the past, and I talked about an event in the past, and I said it, and I shouldn't have talked about the event in the past, and suddenly I'm in a different place, and I suddenly feel very lonely because I've talked about an event in the past, and it sort of triggered a lot of stuff that it happens to all of us. I think maybe I'm sure it happens to all of us. But what we talk about, suddenly things change, or we don't necessarily need to be talking about for things to change. But I don't know. If you're in the UK, 10 minutes to midnight, that may be a changeover. But I would have thought quite a fortunate changeover because the moon is moving into Cancer. Now, if you're in the Americas, the moon will move into Cancer earlier in the day. That would be 10 minutes to midnight. That would be 10 minutes to 7 in the evening on the East Coast, 10 minutes to 4 in the afternoon on the West Coast. So if you're an American Cancerian, for a good chunk of the day, the moon will be in Cancer. And there will be a change of emphasis. And in one sense, you're going to feel perhaps a little bit more extroverted. You won't feel that it's quite so necessary to keep things secret. But on the other hand, the moon will be in Cancer. And I think with the moon being in Cancer, perhaps you're going to feel a little more self-contained. That is a possibility. And I suppose one thinks of Cancer, one thinks of crabs, one thinks of shells, hard shells, being able to retreat. Sort of hermit crabs, of course, can choose which shell they go into. So there is that changeover. If you are not in, I don't know, if you're not in the UK, I think actually Spain, Portugal is on the same time zone as the UK. Certainly Portugal. I don't know about Spain. Portugal's certainly on the same time zone as the UK. But if you're in, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, the moon doesn't move into Cancer until tomorrow. So today would just still be this moon in Gemini day. So looking at the overall picture, Cancer, I think it looks good. And you don't have to be beholden to anyone. You can do things your way. And in many cases, a little bit of secrecy can do you a lot of good. Leo, the main aspect today is a sesquiquadrate between the Sun and Saturn. So what we've got is the Sun, which is your ruler, is at 28:45 Libra, New York time at noon. So it's right at the end of Libra. And it's making an 135-degree aspect to Saturn. And I think that's going to have an impact on you. So what it could mean is that you may feel a certain sense of responsibility, that something is constraining you, that there's something that needs to be considered. And therefore, I would kind of recommend that you have quite a serious day, or at least you expect to have a serious day. It doesn't mean you have to have a completely serious day. We should not forget that the moon is making a conjunction to Jupiter in Gemini. Moon is making a trine to the sun. Moon trine sun, that is great. I think that it's quite possible that you can enjoy other people's company and that you can be positive and enthusiastic, but you do not want to be complacent with the Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn. There is something around that you need to take seriously. It may be that there are a set of details or something going on that you need to understand, that you really need to get to grips with, and you need the information, and you can't just focus on the surface. It's easy to concentrate on what's going on the surface. Certainly easy. It just makes things just I don't know, so much more comfortable. But there is a sense of, I don't know, a sense that it's just not satisfactory, and a sense that you're missing something out. And so if you need to be serious, if you're called on to be serious, then I think that is something that's important for you to do. Now, you might take the view that if there's something serious is out there, you can kind of look the other way, you can ignore it. But I don't think that's the case, because if you ignore something, it just gets you at a later stage. So if something needs to be addressed, Leo, then I would argue that you should address it right now. And this Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn may have an impact on certain relationships, because the logic would be that the Sun is you, because the Sun rules Leo, and Saturn represents another person, Saturn being the ruler of your opposite sign of Aquarius. So Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn, you may find that you and other people have a somewhat, or at least not I don't know, I won't say other people as in the group, but you and certain other individuals have a somewhat uneasy connection with each other. You may feel that someone is trying to restrict and restrain you. Someone is telling you what to do, and you need to understand what's going on. And it may not be because someone is telling you what to do. It may just be that you actually, if you're honest with yourself, you feel a certain sense of responsibility for another person. And as a result, you may not be able to be completely free. You may not regard yourself as being a free agent, that you do have to consider some other factor. And I think the sooner you consider this other factor, you consider whatever it is that might be restricting you, whatever it is that might be a responsibility that can't be ignored, as soon as you start to consider it, then I think the easier it is to be able to deal with it. And you'll then perhaps be able to enjoy what else is going on today. Like that Moon trine Sun. Moon trine Sun is a great aspect. And if you have a responsible approach, you're aware that you may be needed. That's possible. You're aware that you don't have complete freedom. But with that Moon trine Sun, I think that you can express yourself, you can feel comfortable, and you can feel responsible but comfortable as well. And I think that your social life can prosper with Moon trine Sun, and there's this Moon Jupiter conjunction in Gemini, and with that Moon Jupiter conjunction in Gemini, you may have a sense of where you're going, not in terms of ambitions and status and all that kind of stuff, but just where you're going in a more general sense. You may have a sense of what kind of future you want for yourself with that Moon-Jupiter conjunction. Now, it may be a very fleeting sense of your future. You maybe just a few minutes, you just have a sense of where you'd like to be going, and then you forget about it. But if you do get any images about the future today, but I'm talking about your future. I'm not talking about forecasting the future. I'm talking about a sense of what kind of future you'd like to have for yourself. If you do get any of those kind of senses, then hold on to those senses, because I think with that Moon Jupiter conjunction, you're being perhaps told something very important that could be useful in the sort of weeks, months, and even years to come. Virgo. There are things happening in Gemini. We have a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini. And Gemini is, of course, a high-profile sign in your chart. It's at the top of your chart. So you've got, with Moon in Gemini, Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini, it's a new week. On today being Monday, and there are things you want to do, there are things you want to get going on, and I think that you're enthusiastic and you're optimistic, and you're just thinking about all the things that are possible. At least I hope you are. This is not a time to be doing nothing, and it's about where you want to go, it's about who you want to be. And I think that people are going to listen to you, and people are going to listen to you because firstly, you do have a certain sense of authority to you. That's the first point. But secondly, you're going to have a positive message. Virgos can sometimes be very unpositive. I suppose unpositive, I suppose, is negative. I mean, Virgos can look at all the things that can go wrong. That can be a Virgo trait. But with the Moon-Jupiter conjunction, I think it's perhaps looking at the things that can go right. And it's not to say they will go right, but you can talk about what might happen if things go right. And that can be very much part of how you come across. And I think that you have the ability to enthuse people and make them feel confident about themselves. And this Moon-Jupiter conjunction, links up with the Sun in Libra, because the Moon is making a trine to the Sun. So we've got the Moon in Gemini, high-profile part of your chart. It's making a trine to the Sun in Libra, and that may say something about money and your resources. So Libra, if there's something you want, perhaps Virgo, did I say that? Yeah, so Virgo, if there's something you want, then now is the time to perhaps make it happen. But you don't have to do it by making outrageous demands or being pushy. If there's something you want in a material sense, I think you can get it in a way that is kind of easy. It's not about having confrontations. It's not about making very unsubtle demands. It's just moving things slowly, creating the right impression, and through your, almost through your joyful enthusiasm, you can kind of just make things happen. Yeah, I understand joyful enthusiasm is not something one normally associates with Virgo, but I think that it's something you can, I think, project. But it's important to be realistic. Now, Virgo is supposed to be a realistic sign. It's an earth sign, isn't it? It's supposed to be realistic and down to earth. And in a way, today, I'm not convinced that you are particularly down to earth. For one thing, we've got no planets in earth signs except for Uranus and Pluto. For another thing, we have got a sesquiquadrate between Mercury and Neptune. So Mercury is your ruler, it's sesquiquadrate Neptune. That is a little bit confusing, that's a little bit undermining. You may not quite know what you're doing or where you're going, and you're trying your hardest to think straight, but still you get distracted. Now, how do we deal with this sense of sort of a lack of grounding? Now, a lack of grounding because of this lack of earth, feeling that you're not fully tied down, you're not fully anchored, like a sort of a hot air balloon, or like a, I don't know, or a barrage balloon that could just go floating away if it's not tethered to the ground. There may be a little bit of an advantage about not being fully grounded, because I suppose the problem about focusing on the earth and what is real is that sometimes that can actually limit one's imagination. One can always, particularly if you're a Virgo can always be thinking about what is practical. Do the numbers balance? We have to be sensible. But that can actually be quite restricting. And it can be protecting, but it can also be restricting. And maybe with this moon conjunct Jupiter in an environment where there's only Uranus and Pluto in earth signs, allows you to just imagine and allows you to go beyond your normal Virgoan material self and think about something in a new way. Now, you don't want to take it too far. Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune can go too far, that's true. You can have a fantasy, you can have ideas that aren't realistic, and if those unrealistic fantasies get turned into action, then of course that's not entirely desirable. But perhaps, Virgo, today is about allowing yourself to imagine and being able to think about things that you don't normally think about. So I think that's perhaps one way of looking at the moon conjunct Jupiter, and perhaps that's what people want. The message Virgo is able to present is maybe a message that is attractive. Yeah, it can be a deceptive message as well, but it's just about being able to draw the line. Libra, we have a conjunction between Moon and Jupiter today, and the Moon is trine the Sun, and that I think is pretty useful from a Libran perspective. I think it means that it can be a nice day. You can feel happy. There's a certain sense of contentment and just a general belief that everything is fine, and maybe you feel that you don't actually have to do very much. I think that might be a somewhat dangerous view, because I think there is a certain possibility of complacency. Because if everything is flowing, everything is moving, you're feeling comfortable, then why should you worry? Why should you really have to worry about anything? Just let things happen, let things just go their merry way, and everything will be fine. Well, it may well be the case that everything is fine. I do think that, Libra, you're going to be luckier than average. I think people will look at what you want, and in many cases they'll be prepared to oblige, and also there just may be times over the course of the day where you just feel a sense of comfort. Comfort not just in a material sense. In fact, we shouldn't forget that there aren't many planets in Earth signs at the moment. There's only Uranus and Pluto in Earth signs. It may actually be not a material sense of comfort. It may be a almost spiritual sense of comfort, that everything is fine. Everything is fine. That's what it's all about, isn't it? But I would be wary of complacency. For one thing, the sun, yes, the sun is moving through your sign, and that's nice. In fact, it's coming to the end of your sign. In a day or two's time, the sun will be in Scorpio, and the Libra season will be very much over. But while the sun moves in very late Libra, it does make a sesquiquadrate to Saturn, 135-degree aspect to Saturn. And that sesquiquadrate to Saturn may force you to take something seriously that you perhaps weren't planning on taking seriously. You thought that everything was in order, but everything was just running nicely, and then suddenly something happens. You become aware of something, and that means hopefully you stop and you pay attention to the situation. So the moment you see something going wrong, or potentially going wrong, then act. Or the moment you see a disturbance or something, it may not be broken, but it may be breaking, something that needs attention. You may be tempted to just leave it for later. I wouldn't do that. And I suppose that can apply to your body as well. So, for example, if you feel, I don't know, sort of a pain somewhere or discomfort somewhere, don't just carry on. I suppose that's especially the case if you're, I don't know, if it's some sort of muscular pain or whatever that that you get a first warning, you need to stop what you're doing, let the muscle rest or whatever, you're overdoing it. The moment you get some first warning about your, by the way, always when I talk about health and medical stuff, I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just looking at it from a very general perspective, more of a lifestyle perspective. But anyway, if you do feel that something isn't as it should be in terms of your body, don't just carry on and just assume everything is going to be fine. Just stop what you're doing. It may be that you're just overdoing something, and just a bit of rest could be all that's required of you. So don't be sort of complacent in that direction. And one aspect we do have that I think you do need to pay attention to is the fact that we don't just have Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn, we also have Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune. And I think that Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune could have an impact on you. And I think that some Librans may actually lose touch with reality over the course of the day. Now, short term, that might not matter. It seems okay, no harm is done. But there might reach a stage where you start going in a direction and you don't actually know what you're doing, and that soon becomes clear. And so be very careful. And you can have all sorts of fantasies, and with Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune, you can have fantastic ideas. Some of these ideas may be great, some of them are ideas are going to be terrible, but you don't want to incorporate those ideas into the daily pattern of your life or into actual actions. Not yet, because you don't know all the facts and you could be mistaken. So do be careful. On the other hand, Libra, I think that today you are going to be very sensitive, and I think that your intuitive abilities are going to be finely tuned. Maybe intuitive is not quite the right word, because when you talk about intuition, you're talking more about fire. I think perhaps your emotional sensitivity might be a better way of looking at it, of seeing it rather than intuition, or just plain psychic abilities. So if there is such a thing as telepathy, if telepathy exists, then you're going to be more telepathic than usual. If you can read people's minds, if you can read people's feelings, okay, you don't have to be psychic to read people's feelings. It's a body language. Whatever reason you can read people's minds and thoughts, whether there's something psychic going on, whether it's just your observation of human nature, whatever it is, I think you're going to be quite good at it. And so, your psychic abilities are going to be finely tuned. And I think we're helped by the fact that there are no planets in Earth signs except for Uranus and Pluto. If that just makes things all the more up in the air, makes things just all the more fluid. And so you can pick up on quite a lot, and it may be some kind of psychic ability. But, psychic ability can be dangerous because you can just be overwhelmed by your sixth senses, and it just can be difficult to actually work out what is happening. And that's why I think today it's very important that you don't reach concrete conclusions. Scorpio, you do have a sense in which you are quite fortunate at the moment, but it's fortunate in a very Scorpio kind of way. It's just about you perhaps being in the right place at the right time. You just know where to be, and you can't quite explain it. And in fact, you can explain it perhaps emotionally, but you can't explain it logically. It just makes sense, and you just know where to be. And indeed, Scorpio, I think you know where not to be. And so it's perhaps all about this conjunction between the Moon and Jupiter we have today. This Moon-Jupiter conjunction is is quite private. It's not something you're revealing. You're not telling people about what your processes are. And if things start working in your favor today, as I think they probably will, then you're not going to be very open about it because it's private. It's the way Scorpio is, and Scorpio is quite a secretive sign. So whatever's going on at the moment, you don't really have to talk about it. But it's true, though, that your ability to talk and to get on with people is actually quite good. So you may not be prepared to reveal much, but what little you are prepared to reveal seems to be enough, because your ability to talk to all sorts of people, get on with all sorts of people, to even sort of forge unions with new people, connections. I think this is something you can do just very easily. It seems to come very naturally to you. And maybe it's just because of your emotional awareness. I think that at the moment you are quite emotionally aware, and I think that you're helped by the fact that Mercury is in Scorpio. Mercury is in your sign, and it's sesquiquadrate Neptune. So Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune, I think, does make you perceptive. This Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune, it can be a problem for some people because they might reach the wrong conclusions or they might get the wrong ideas. But I think for you, I think you can handle that Mercury sesquiquadrate Neptune pretty well. And I think that you'll just have an understanding of what makes people tick. Doesn't have to be explained, and I think that people they'll appreciate your understanding, and I suppose in some respects you'll just be sort of a natural psychotherapist. It will come naturally to you. So I think it is a day when you can definitely gain people's trust, but still you are cautious, and there are limits to what you're prepared to reveal. And just a reminder that the Sun is getting ready to move into Scorpio. So in the next day or two, the Sun changes sign, and the Scorpio season well and truly begins. In a way, the Scorpio season has already begun. I mean, Venus has gone straight through Scorpio and out the other side. It's gone into Sagittarius. But, we've got Mercury moving into Scorpio, and now the Sun is moving into Scorpio as well. So it may feel Scorpio that something is changing, that you're perhaps ready to reveal yourself, show who you are, and you're just gearing up for it. And that might be a reason why you want to take a step back. Just pause, try to understand, where things are actually going. And you might, for example, have questions about some aspects of your direction, particularly today. Today there's this rather difficult sesquiquadrate between the Sun and Saturn, and you might have questions about your ambitions and how your ambitions are served by your current circumstances. And it may occur to you, for example, that maybe your creativity is not being given enough attention, that in some ways you're being ignored or discounted, and that may be bothering you, and it may be something that you've been thinking about. And maybe once Sun moves into Scorpio, you'll be in a better position to really articulate what you want, and also to articulate your grievances. Now, I said the moon's in Gemini. We've got the Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini. The moon does move into Cancer today. Well, it depends. If you're in London, moon moves into Cancer at 10 minutes to midnight. So last 10 minutes of the day, the moon is in Cancer. If you're in the Americas, then late afternoon, early evening, the moon changes sign. And I think that sign change could be important. I think it's going to make you more of an extrovert. I think you're going to perhaps be less secretive, and there may have been things you've been really holding on to very tightly, and I think perhaps with the moon in Cancer, you're going to be able to let go and sort of perhaps be a little more relaxed, a little bit more forward thinking, and not being quite so tense maybe. Now if you're in Asia, much of Europe, Australia, New Zealand, don't worry. The moon will go into Cancer tomorrow, and tomorrow I'll be talking about what the implications are for the full implications for that for Scorpios of this lunar sign change. Sagittarius. Sagittarius, don't forget your social environment. It does matter, and you have to consider the various people you have to deal with, and in many cases, they just can't be ignored. And I think that people do have quite a lot to offer. You might have a lot of answers, or you might feel you've got a lot of answers, but you haven't got all the answers. And it does seem, Sagittarius, that there are people who can actually be very useful if you give them a chance. If you talk to them, see what they've got to say. I think that you might actually be pleasantly surprised. And in order to benefit from other people, you may have to give something away, or you may have to compromise, or you may have to meet someone halfway, or you may have to move into someone's territory or space and perhaps put yourself in a position where you may be sort of temporarily vulnerable, is one way of looking at it, but temporarily unsure of yourself. So a little bit of uncertainty might be useful, provided that it is not taken too far. So, do consider the social dimension. And also, Sagittarius, don't think that you can't have an influence. I think that might be perhaps one of the reasons you're hesitating today, because you might think that people aren't really interested in what you have to say. And that's not true. If you are very open about what you believe, and you make some effort to maybe change people's minds or to convince people of something, then I do think that they are going to listen. I think you can get an audience, and in your own way, Sagittarius, I do think that you can be gently persuasive, and it may be actually that there are people out there who may be very easy to persuade, even frighteningly easy to persuade. If you've got an idea that may be a bit strange and unusual, you kind of don't want people to just listen to you straight away without, just take what you say at face value. That can be a bit disconcerting. But some people will actually take what you say at face value. They will just listen to you, and they will believe you. And that means, Sagittarius, perhaps you need to be a little bit careful what you say. And I know Sagittarians can have a great sense of humor, but you may say something in a way that is sort of light and it's a bit of a joke maybe, and you may be taken at face value. And so be careful. You don't necessarily want to be taken literally, even if it might be amusing, if it might be sort of good for your ego. So you can be persuasive, but in the first instance, perhaps you have to appear to make yourself vulnerable. You have to appear to do things other people's way. You have to appear to compromise. You have to appear to make a special effort to bring people into your life, and perhaps to begin with, start doing things their way. following their rules, but appearances are deceptive, and there will be, I think, a certain stage where you realize that you are the one who is actually very much in control. Capricorn. Capricorn, you have a good sense of what everything is about. I think you by and large understand what's going on, and you have a general feeling that things are going in the right direction. So that seems to be fine. But you may feel also that there is a sort of a process of change, and you're aware that other people can have an impact on you, and you've got there are things, you'd like things done in a particular way, but at the same time you have to ask yourself, are they being done your way? And your way is important. And it may be that some of your routines and even rituals just get a little bit messed up today, and you're not quite sure how, and it just feels that you're allowing the outside world to just have too much of an influence, and maybe there might be a temptation to perhaps blame other people if things don't go entirely to plan. But the question is, what does it mean for your plans to be messed up? I mean, plans can only be messed up if plans are very rigid, are very fixed. I mean, if you have got flexible plans and you're not working to a very strict timetable, it should be quite difficult to mess you around, because, you've got... There should be a certain amount of slack in the system. Things don't have to be done absolutely correctly, absolutely perfectly. So in that sense, I think that things should be okay. And there is a trine aspect between the moon and the sun, and the moon trine sun, it's a nice aspect. And with that moon trine sun, it seems that your own planning, remember, it's your flexible planning. It's not rigid plans, but your own planning, your own thinking about the future, it may actually start to pay a dividend today. Things will perhaps happen, perhaps as you expect, and even when there are hiccups, they will be what you expect. And I think that you may find today that some of your previous preparation starts to pay off. So that's something that sort of indicates that it's a day when you actually feel a sense of your own power, that you are properly prepared, and you do have a sense of where things are going. You have a sense of where things should be going, and you have a good sense of where you'd like to be, maybe in a week's time, 2 weeks' time. You do have a sense of all that. And so I can't see anything going too badly wrong today. Also, the moon does change sign from Gemini into Cancer. So moon is moving through late Gemini, and then it moves into Cancer. Now, if you're in the Americas, you feel that sign change late afternoon, early evening. If you're not in the Americas, that's going to be more about tomorrow. But if you are in the Americas, you get this sign change, moon moving from Gemini to Cancer. I think that this sign change is probably quite a good thing. It allows you to be, I think, more amenable to other people. I think that up until that sign change, you're not going to be entirely comfortable with certain people. Somehow they're not doing things your way, or they're not thinking things your way. But when the moon moves into Cancer, I think you'll have a greater sense of people and what people want, and also you'll have a greater sense of people's influence, and I think that I think can be useful. And I think that you're not going to, with Moon moving through Cancer, you're certainly not going to underestimate people, but you're not going to be overwhelmed by them. And yeah, we'll talk about this more tomorrow when the Moon is in Cancer for everyone. Aquarius. Aquarius, the Sun is just about to leave Libra, and the Moon is in late Gemini. And so we've got a Moon trine Sun in air signs. Moon in Gemini, trine the Sun in Libra. And this trine really does help you, I think, because, you're an Aquarius. You are the missing air sign. We've got planets in Gemini, we've got the Sun in Libra, and then Aquarius is the missing sign. And so this Sun trine Moon, and in fact, you've got the Moon trine Jupiter as well. So it all hits Aquarius. So there's this kind of a grand trine feel to it. I know we don't have a grand trine because we've got nothing in Aquarius, but still there is a sense that things are moving, and that things are moving your way, and you probably have a chance here to, in general, exceed your expectations in terms of actually what happens today. So I would say, make the most of it. And also, there's a Moon conjunct Jupiter in Gemini. That is really good news for Aquarius. It allows you to really think about what you can do, and do what you can do. It's not about there's a limit to how much you should be thinking. I suppose that is a temptation. I suppose with Moon conjunct Moon conjunct Jupiter in Gemini, there is a temptation to perhaps think too much. So then ask yourself, what can you do? What should you be doing? What would you like to do? And that's perhaps the real point. What would you like to do today? What would make you feel happy, comfortable, and fulfilled? And that's what you need to do, because I think that is actually what you can do. And if you don't do it today, then there might be regrets, because the Moon is not going to be in Gemini forever. In fact, in the Americas, late this afternoon, early evening, the Moon moves into Cancer. In the UK, the Moon moves into Cancer at 10 minutes to midnight. So, there isn't all the time in the world, but now really is a time to really tune into, into who you are, what you can do, and don't hold back. Now, you perhaps have to think about what could hold you back, and possibly the most important aspect today is a sesquiquadrate between the Sun and Saturn. So sesquiquadrate is a 135-degree aspect. That is 3/8 of the circle. And with this aspect, you may feel that someone is being held back. So the question is, who is being held back? It may be that actually you are holding someone else back. Someone wants to do something, and it's completely harmless, but somehow you're stopping them. So how might that be the case? Well, maybe today, Aquarius, you need to think about, all of the relationships you have, particularly the kind of relationship where there is some power disparity, and particularly those relationships where you have the power and you are quite capable of holding someone back and preventing someone from doing what they really want to do. It may be because you deliberately focus on stopping them, or it may be that you say you want to do what you want to do and they want to do, you take the view that, your interest should take precedence. I would, if you possibly can, Aquarius, try to take a live and let live approach. People do their stuff, you do their stuff. You can do the same stuff if you have the same interest, but it depends. Another way of looking at the Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn may be about some kind of passing incompatibility. So in terms of your various relationships, doesn't matter at what level these relationships exist, I think that there may be an awareness that you and another person don't really relate. I mean, you may relate in the future, you may relate in the past, but I think today you may not. And so if you feel that you and another person are not getting on, or might not get on, then I would try to avoid this person if at all possible. Okay, I understand that sometimes you have to disagree with people and you have to confront them, but if possible, avoid confrontations and avoid relationships where you think there's some danger that there's going to be some kind of clash or some kind of a disagreement, not just from your in terms of your interests, but also in terms of the other person's interests. Because when you want to be, you can be very stubborn, and you can be so stubborn that you can just make people's lives miserable. So I think that you have to tread carefully with that Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn, and you're capable of bringing things to a halt, creating all sorts of reasons why something can't happen, and that's not the kind of person you want to be at the moment, is it? So yeah, overall, Aquarius, I think it's a day when you do what you want to do, enjoy yourself, but don't feel that other people necessarily have to participate, and don't impose your values and your schedules and your priorities onto others unless you've got a very good reason to do so. Pisces, there is a conjunction between the Moon and Jupiter in Gemini. And with this conjunction between the Moon and Jupiter, and it's also the Moon is trine the Sun, I think it's probably a day when you do want to be in control. Not in control in a sort of controlling, dictatorial kind of way, but you want to know that you're making the decisions, that what you want is actually what happens, that you don't have to worry too much about people getting in your way. Though, in terms of your family, I think the family with the Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini, in a very low-profile sector of your chart with this Moon-Jupiter conjunction, a sector of your chart that is often connected with the family, I think that in terms of your family, there is an opportunity for things to work very well. So I think that you can have good relations with family members, and if there have been recent disagreements, even very recent disagreements, because the Moon is making a conjunction to Jupiter, but it has just made a square to Saturn, and that square to Saturn might represent some kind of issues in terms of your family, but now you've got a square to Saturn, perhaps represents a problem, and Moon conjunct Jupiter represents the resolution of the problem. So I think in terms of family relations, things do look pretty good, and so try to concentrate on your home and what's happening in your home, and feeling comfortable in your home, and perhaps also just counting your blessings. I think that is perhaps quite important. Now, the Moon doesn't just make a conjunction to Jupiter; it does make a trine to the Sun, and Moon trine Sun. It's always a nice aspect to have. It is about just things working well, and I think in this case there are things that you could talk about, but you maybe don't have to talk about. Though, if you want to express yourself I think you can, particularly, when you're dealing with people you trust. There's just a flow of information here with a moon trine sun, and provided that you yourself are feeling comfortable, really comfortable. And I think today, Pisces, that should be what you should be aspiring to do, to just feel comfortable, in comfortable surroundings. Then, just everything flows. And if something doesn't make sense, or if there's something confusing, I think that you'll just be able to take it in your stride. And then the moon starts moving into Cancer, and if you're in the Americas, late afternoon, early evening, moon moves from Gemini into Cancer. In other words, the moon is moving from an air sign into a water sign. I think that that just continues the whole theme of comfort. I think you feel more comfortable, but I think you will feel comfortable, but I think you'll perhaps feel a little braver, a little more of an extrovert as the moon moves into Cancer, and you'll feel that you have sorted things out, that everything is in place, and you're just now ready to sort of move on from your sort of immediate space, and perhaps you can do a little bit of exploring, perhaps. When I say exploring, I mean maybe exploring in terms of what you're doing. I mean, maybe there's something you'd like to do that you've been thinking about doing, but you haven't wanted to do it because you perhaps hadn't felt the time wasn't right, or you had your doubts. But now with the moon moving into Cancer, you can start doing things that you enjoy, without having to be too worried about the consequences. And so, American Cancerians, the day really gets better as it goes along. And, if you're in another part of the world, don't worry, Pisces, the moon goes into Cancer tomorrow. Or indeed, if you're in the UK, the moon goes into Cancer at 10 minutes to midnight. So overall, Cancer, everything seems to be in place. So overall, Pisces, everything seems to be in place, and there doesn't seem to be too much to worry about. And those are my forecasts for the 12 signs. And I now want to look at today from the viewpoint of the I Ching. So I asked the question, what is Monday going to be like for those watching the I Ching section of this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 62, which is preponderance of the small. Now, the advice with this hexagram is not to take things too far. And the image that the I Ching gives is of a bird, and the advice given to this bird is certainly not to fly too high. The bird should sort of stick to the undergrowth where it can't be seen. The problem about flying too high is, of course, once it goes above the undergrowth, it can be seen. And, of course, once it's seen, it's vulnerable to being hunted. So it's important not to have big ideas. We can be satisfied with perhaps small gains, but we shouldn't expect to accomplish major things today. If we do try to accomplish major things, we could really find that things get very difficult very quickly. And indeed, we may make ourselves vulnerable to some kind of attack. I mean, I'm not necessarily talking about a literal attack, but we are certainly putting ourselves in a situation where we are vulnerable. And the third line moves. And the third line in the I Ching is often a difficult line. And there is the danger here that, we're supposed to take things slowly, not expose ourselves to unnecessary danger. But with the third line moving, there is a danger that we push things too far, and that we really do get ourselves into a bit of a mess. And in fact, it we're warned about a hidden attack, being attacked by some sort of I don't know, hidden enemy or whatever. I'm not talking about necessarily anything literally, though of course with that moving line, don't go anywhere dangerous. I think that's quite important. But the advice is, you've got to look after yourself here. Don't advance too quickly, and don't fly too high. Really important not to fly too high, because if we fly too high, if we take things too far, we're going to be perhaps vulnerable to sort of hidden dangers. And I suppose one can be attacked in many different ways. Perhaps one can expose ourselves to criticism. If you decide to break away from the pack, do something differently, stand out as an individual, perhaps you've got your own ideas, then immediately you're exposing yourself to criticism. So yeah, you might feel that now is the right time. And I suppose we have to consider this also in terms of what's happening astrologically. I mean, I talked a lot about the moon conjunct Jupiter and how it's a really nice conjunction. And it is a nice conjunction, but we shouldn't forget that Jupiter's in Gemini. Gemini is in its detriment. And I suppose what maybe I should have said when going through the 12 signs and talking about generally what this moon-Jupiter conjunction is about, it may not be working quite as well or quite as nicely as the average moon-Jupiter conjunction, because it's in Gemini, because Jupiter is retrograde, because Jupiter is, I believe it's peregrine. It doesn't have any essential dignity in that sign. And so because of that, the moon-Jupiter conjunction may encourage us to go too far. And we go too far and things don't turn out right. We may be attracting trouble, we may be attracting criticism, we may be attracting attacks, and so things might not end up particularly well. Now, this hexagram does move because the third line moves, and so with the third line moving, we transition to hexagram number 16. And hexagram 16 is, on the surface, it seems to be quite a good hexagram because it's contentment. The Wilhelm translation of the I Ching translates this as enthusiasm. So enthusiasm is nice. It's nice to be enthusiastic about things. The dog is being probably not enthusiastic at all. I think the dog sees some kind of danger. I'm not quite sure what that's about. But enthusiasm, it's wonderful being enthusiastic. It's great. But where actually does enthusiasm lead? There can be something quite deluded about enthusiasm. We're enthusiastic about something without any real grounding. And of course, today it's a day when there are no planets in Earth signs except for Uranus and Pluto. So what are we actually doing? And contentment gives us the idea of complacency. We kind of think things are going to be fine. We kind of know they're not going to be fine, but we still think they're going to be fine. We can see danger on the horizon, but it might be a very distant horizon. And it's just okay as it is, and we can relax. And I suppose linked with the previous hexagram of a preponderance of the small, we might do things which we think it's okay. We're complacent, and we don't have to worry about those hidden dangers that I was talking about when talking about the first hexagram, but those dangers do exist. They may not be immediate, but if we just carry on without protecting ourselves, just assuming that somehow it'll all be okay in the end, that's not a good way of looking at things. So I think somehow we need to sort of wake ourselves up in terms of contentment. There is probably nothing to be contented about if we're honest about it, and we need to start to prepare. And I'm not necessarily talking about anything personal. It may just be about what is happening to society, the world in which we live. We need to prepare, and I think that is going to be quite important. And that's it. That's the I Ching, and Now I want to go back to the astrology. Now, my main theme is the moon conjunct Jupiter, but thinking about it, I just wanted to say a little bit about the Sun sesquiquadrate Jupiter, sorry, the Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn, and just how it relates to Kamala Harris. So let me just show you what I mean, what I was thinking about. So here is Kamala Harris's chart. I mean, I know you may be thinking, well, why the hell am I spending so much time on her chart? But the thing is, I think the wonderful thing about this election is it's a real opportunity to really look at someone's chart in real detail and really look at it very closely. So there is Kamala Harris's chart, and there is the Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn. So we've got Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn. It happens today, Monday, London time at 4:55 a.m. And in fact, that means that in fact it happens would have happened sort of Sunday evening if you're in the Americas. But still, let's just look at what's happening here. So there's the Sun at 28. This is the precise moment. Sun is at 28:15 Libra, and Saturn is at 13:15 Pisces. So remember, 13:15 Pisces. Get that? So if we look at Kamala Harris's house, she has got her Uranus at 13:15 Virgo. This Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn has an exact hit on her Uranus, and I think this is could potentially be a very difficult aspect. It is what she was involved in. I think I was looking at a video in which the astrologer Bill Meridian was talking about this aspect, and as I understand Bill Meridian, he's a very respected astrologer who's been around, who's been on the scene for some time, I think he's into financial astrology, and he pointed out this aspect that Kamala Harris has at the moment, and with particular reference to the election. He does not see it as being a good aspect. I mean, I did actually see the aspect before I saw the video with Bill Meridian. So it is important, and so let's just start to consider what this actually means. So let's start off by considering the state of Kamala Harris's Uranus. Remember, she's got Uranus at 13:15 Virgo. So if we look at the midpoint of Kamala Harris's midpoints, there is Kamala Harris's Uranus, and her Uranus is very close to the Sun-Moon midpoint. She's got Uranus exactly on her ascendant midheaven midpoint, 10 minutes out. So this is the part of her chart that it's hitting. You can see that Saturn is. Let me make this a bit bigger. So from a midpoint perspective, today we've just had. We are having Saturn exactly on her Uranus. Now, I think Saturn on your Uranus, I would have said on its own, maybe is not so important. Well, unless perhaps you're a politician. So yeah, maybe it is important. The Uranus is all about the enthusiasm and the excitement, but Saturn is on that Uranus. And then Saturn is going retrograde. So Saturn is going retrograde, hits her Uranus, goes back, makes a semi-square sesquiquadrate to her Sun, then goes across her Sun-Moon midpoint, and that hits her Moon. So it's really starting today with that Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn. I think that aspect is it's going to affect some people more than others, but I do think that Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn is really difficult for Kamala Harris, and it's one of the reasons why. I think she's going to lose, because this is a theme this is not just about today. It's a theme that moves through into the election, as I've already explained several times in a video. But anyway, this Sun sesquiquadrate video says Sun sesquiquadrate Saturn is today, and it does have a direct impact on Kamala Harris's chart. So that's Kamala Harris. And now I want to just look at the Moon-Jupiter conjunction. So the Moon-Jupiter conjunction, which is today, and I just wanted to say a few things about it. The Moon-Jupiter conjunction is generally seen as being the most fortunate aspect, perhaps you could say. I mean, it depends on the signs, but Jupiter is a fortunate planet. When it's conjunct the Moon, we feel a sense of ourselves and what we can do, and Jupiter's a planet of good fortune, and the Moon can be very spontaneous, can't it? And it's not like sort of the Sun. The Sun is more of a problem. Sun conjunct Jupiter, that's more complicated because the Sun can kind of damage Jupiter. It's not sort of mutually reinforcing, but Moon conjunct Jupiter, the two planets by and large are not damaging each other, and so the Moon-Jupiter conjunction can represent a point of enthusiasm. It can be something something people are excited about, and it can just be good luck that just sort of comes from nowhere. I mean, that is another way of looking at it. Or, with the Moon-Jupiter conjunction, we're always told with Jupiter that you've got to put in the work, and Jupiter perhaps provides an opportunity, but are we going to take advantage of that opportunity? So if we do take advantage of that opportunity, then perhaps we can get the full benefits of the conjunction. So what I want to do is look at a few famous people who have Moon-Jupiter conjunction. Now, the problem with the Moon-Jupiter conjunction in terms of famous people is that, there are famous people who I have the times of birth for, but there are other famous people who I haven't got times of birth for. The Moon moves 12, 13, 14 degrees in a day, so it kind of depends on the timing. You can say, okay, they've got Moon-Jupiter conjunction roughly in the same part of the sky, but it's not exact. So that kind of restricts a little bit in terms of what I can say. So let's look at some people who have Moon conjunct Jupiter and just get an idea about what Moon-Jupiter conjunction might actually mean. So someone who was not particularly fortunate, who had the Moon-Jupiter conjunction, was Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. So Tsar Nicholas II of Russia had a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Aries. So on the surface of it, I mean, that looks quite good, having a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Aries. Here is someone who, I suppose he tried his best for Russia. It's a long time since I was probably a teenager the last time I really looked at Tsarist history, so I'm not a great expert on it, not an expert at all. But Moon-Jupiter conjunction, you could say that here is someone who perhaps tries to take the initiative, but the Moon is weak. I mean, in a male, by weak, let me explain what that means. If you are a man with Moon in Aries conjunct Jupiter, it may just be, particularly it may be that some of that initiative, in his case, what we know about it is, you think about strong women. His wife, what's her name, the Tsarina, she made a lot of decisions, and she made decisions around the court, and he seemed to be very influenced by other people, whether it's Rasputin, whether his wife, and he sort of got pushed into things, and then he does take the initiative. And sometimes when you take the initiative can turn out to be wrong. So, for example, Tsar Nicholas II making the decision to get involved in the First World War. And of course, Rasputin advised him that, to absolutely not get involved in the First World War. And nonetheless, he did. And of course, because Russia got involved in the First World War, Russia defeated. You could argue that if Russia had not got involved in the First World War, Russia would never have become a communist country. There would never be no Soviet Union. That is one way of looking at it. So in his case, it's difficult to really know quite how that Moon-Jupiter conjunction is working. I mean, it just may say something about his wife in his case. Now, the Moon is ruler of his 7th house. And so perhaps the Moon conjunct Jupiter, in his case, him coming over as perhaps being a weak Tsar who tried to be strong, and you had to think about all the people pushing him this way or this way and that way. So in his case, maybe that Moon-Jupiter conjunction didn't work particularly well, but we have to look at sort of other things in his chart. I mean, he's got Mercury-Saturn opposition on the midheaven, Saturn on the midheaven, Mercury opposition Saturn. This is not someone who's able to make good decisions. And Mercury opposition Saturn. And then Moon-Jupiter, he does make the occasional impulsive decision, but that impulsive decision doesn't always work out. And as we know, that with Tsar Nicholas II, the whole thing had a very tragic result, with him and his family being executed by the Bolsheviks. And there's Neptune square the ascendant. So that's perhaps not a very good example of the Moon-Jupiter conjunction being fortunate. And someone else with Moon-Jupiter conjunction was British Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. Don't have a time of birth for her, but she has a Moon-Jupiter conjunction to some extent. We don't know how strong it is because I don't have a time of birth for her. So her Moon could be anywhere between, 26 Leo and 12 Virgo. I don't know. She strikes me. She's not someone who you would think would be a naturally sort of natural politician. She didn't. I suppose she started off without the connections. I mean, she came from a humble background, and yet, despite her humble background, she was able to become deputy prime minister. And she's still quite young. She's 44, and she's deputy prime minister. She's had a fantastic political career. I mean, so far. One wonders how long she's going to last, but she has Moon conjunct Jupiter. And even though it's in Virgo, Jupiter doesn't actually work particularly well in Virgo. It's in its detriment, but it doesn't matter. She has certainly been successful. You can't take that away from her. And perhaps that Moon in Virgo, I suppose she started life as a carer. I think she came from a working class background. So Moon Jupiter conjunction, she's into sort of the service professions to begin with, and she's able to make the most of it, and she has a sort of some kind of Virgo vision. Moon Jupiter in Virgo, it's a very kind of socialist sign, Virgo, I would argue. It's about the working man, the working woman, Virgo, Moon in Virgo. Sorry, Virgo as a sign in general. So I think Angela Rayner, we don't know exactly what time she was born, but I don't even know if the Moon is in Virgo. Certainly she's got Jupiter in Virgo, but in her case, that Moon-Jupiter conjunction would certainly appear to be working. George Walker Bush, I remember in 2000, I wasn't looking at that election astrologically, and I was just thinking, how is this man going to become president? He just didn't seem to be as competent. But I didn't know anything about America. I just was looking at it from a European perspective. I didn't know what was going on. I was, a lot of people in Europe were really shocked when he got elected, probably because we didn't understand American politics. But George Bush had a Moon conjunct Jupiter in his chart, and it seems the man's lucky. I mean, I suppose you could say he was lucky in terms of being born into a sort of a wealthy family, a very highly connected father. And at the same time, everything seemed to be sort of fairly effortless. He became governor of Texas, and then decided he wanted to stand to be president. I mean, he's not a great as far as I see, he's not a great intellectual. I'm not saying he's stupid, but he's not a great intellectual. He didn't seem to be very presidential. It didn't matter. He had Moon-Jupiter conjunction. He just sort of floated in and got elected to be elected president. Of course, there are other reasons astrologically why he won the 2000 election, but I still think that it does fit the fact that he has a Moon conjunct Jupiter. Now, Meghan has a conjunction between Moon and Jupiter, but it's a complicated conjunction between Moon and Jupiter because there's the involvement of Saturn. So you could say Moon-Jupiter conjunction, she has been quite fortunate. I mean, she was fortunate that, her father was involved in the film industry. I mean, she may have disowned her father, but her father had played a big role in helping her with her career. And she decided that she wanted to, marry someone rich and famous, even more rich and famous than her. Well, I don't know how rich she really was before she met Harry, but the Moon-Jupiter conjunction seems to be working for her, but it's a very interesting Moon-Jupiter conjunction because Saturn is right in the middle. So she's got Saturn on the Moon-Jupiter midpoint. No doubt she's fortunate, but I think with the Moon-Jupiter, it's like there's a spontaneousness to that Moon-Jupiter conjunction, but Saturn is right in the middle. Saturn is always planning, thinking. Maybe it's overthinking, but Saturn is fortunate. It's in its exaltation. So maybe the Saturn on the Moon-Jupiter midpoint is helping that Moon-Jupiter conjunction really find itself, find what she's looking for. I mean, you can't, whatever you think of Meghan, there's no doubt that she's been successful, and successful person with a Moon-Jupiter conjunction, and someone who's very much wants to sort of work on that success to some extent in terms of finding Harry. But there seems to be a little bit of a complacent streak there, even though Saturn is on the Moon-Jupiter midpoint. There's something a little bit complacent. For example, she's made assumptions that these companies like Netflix and Spotify can just give you huge contracts, multi-million dollar contracts. I mean, what is Moon-Jupiter? That is Moon-Jupiter conjunction. But perhaps she was neglecting the Saturn bit. Perhaps she's not fully using that Moon-Jupiter conjunct Saturn. The idea is that you get the contract and then you work hard on it. You don't make assumptions. I don't know, but certainly the Moon-Jupiter conjunction in her chart does seem to be working. And someone else with Moon-Jupiter conjunction is Adolf Hitler. This is a very different Moon-Jupiter conjunction. It's in Capricorn. Moon is in its detriment in Capricorn. Jupiter is fallen in Capricorn. So these are terrible signs. I mean, at least in the context of Adolf Hitler. But he's got this conjunction between the Moon and Jupiter. When I say terrible signs, that's probably an exaggeration. I don't want to offend anyone with Moon in Capricorn or Jupiter in Capricorn. But it is a malefic conjunction. And in terms of, obviously, his impact, it's super malefic. But it's still a Moon-Jupiter conjunction. Maybe it doesn't matter what sign it is in, but it's just telling us where his luck comes from. Moon-Jupiter conjunction, he's in the right place at the right time. He has these crazy ideas, but he just happens to be in the right place at the right time. He's in Germany. He's in, Munich in 1919, just after the First World War. And there's economic ruin, and so he's in the right place at the right time, and that could be Moon conjunct Jupiter and in Capricorn, and he's able to leverage it to sort of maximum impact. And so perhaps that's how he was so successful, or at least one of the reasons why he was so successful. Whatever you think about Hitler, he was certainly very successful. A humble background, becoming for a short period of time the most powerful person in the world. So that's his Moon-Jupiter conjunction, and clearly it's conjunct with South Node as well. He's not using his Moon-Jupiter conjunction in a constructive and forward-thinking way. He's thinking about the past. He's trying to bring back the past, but I don't think you can really understand Hitler's chart without considering that Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Capricorn. Now, you can have a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer. Now, that would be really good. And Taylor Swift has a Moon-Jupiter conjunction, probably in... Sorry, that was in Cancer. So, yeah, Hitler's Moon-Jupiter conjunction was in Capricorn. Taylor Swift's Moon-Jupiter conjunction is in Cancer. She's almost certainly got the Moon in Cancer, but I don't know her time of birth. So if she had been born right at the beginning of the day, then her moon would be late Gemini. But taking it for noon, she has Moon Jupiter in Cancer. And so with Hitler, we had Moon Jupiter in Capricorn, which was the worst signs for Moon Jupiter to be in. With Taylor Swift, Moon Jupiter in Cancer, the best signs for the Moon Jupiter to be in. The Moon is in its own sign. Jupiter is in its exaltation. So this woman is very, very lucky. Now, she's still got to put in the effort, but she's got the luck there. And if she puts in the effort, she can be very successful. And obviously she has been very successful. So she's an example of how you can actually use the Moon-Jupiter conjunction to really be successful, and in terms of whatever she wants. The Moon is also the people. And so with Moon-Jupiter conjunction, I suppose she has a good understanding of her audience, and she's able to give people what they want, and that certainly contributes to her success. I'd like to look at a few more people with Moon conjunct Jupiter, but I think I've run out of time. So those are a few thoughts on Moon-Jupiter conjunction. You have to look at perhaps what sign the Moon-Jupiter conjunction is in, and ideally you'd look at where it is in the chart. But of course, some of these charts I don't have a time of birth, like Taylor Swift or Angela Rayner. Anyway, thanks very much for watching this video. If you did enjoy this video, I'd be very grateful if you were to like it. If you are not subscribed, I'd be really, really grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. So thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.